All right, in this video we're going to be talking about the manufacture of this bolt that we use for our 418 lab. And you guys can see we start off with a chunk of 7/8 inch hex stock. Now it'd be a wrong decision to cut that directly to 4.5 inches, which is the length of the bolt, finished length, because we've got to have something to chuck it up and work with. So I recommend that we cut it at least 5.5, if not much longer, so we can always bury some of the stock inside the chuck. So 24 inches would be fine, and 5.5 inches would be fine, so there's something to hang on to. And you can see the different operations. I'm going to take and work on getting it down to a 725 diameter first, and then afterwards we'll work on getting it to that 5/8 inch for the thread size there. So the only thing that's missing on here is we do need, because this is going to be sticking out of the chuck a good distance, we do need to put a center drill and turn it between centers. So let's get it started here, and the first thing we're going to do is chuck up our material inside of our chuck. I'm going to hold it in there real close to the center so I get a nice face cutting operation done on this. The material we're making this out of is mild steel per the print, and if I look at this RPM calculator here, mild steel, rough cut should be done at 100 surface feet per minute, and putting that into the formula, surface feet per minute times 100 times 4 should be 400 divided by a diameter. Our diameter is 7/8, which if we shrink that down a little bit, it's pretty darn close to 1. So the formula works out, we want to run this about 400 RPM to get it started. So we'll double check that our lathe is set up here. I've got a 494 and 316 on our setup over there. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust our RPM so we're getting it at the 400 RPMs. So we'll loosen up the belt, slide it over, see if we can get it to catch on that pulley underneath. That's always the fun part. Tension it. That seems good. And we'll check out, yeah, that seems to be running just perfectly. Okay, so again, the first operation I'm going to do is just to take and do a facing on the end of the bolt and then do a center drill. So there's our stock. You can see it's just rough cut from the bandsaw, and we'll fire this up. And I'll just manually face this off. Okay, facing operation is finished. And now we're going to come in with the center drill, and I've already got a number 4 center drill that's locked and loaded here. We'll just tighten up the tailstock so we can get that done. There we go. And I just need to get it in far enough so that the chamfer, that 60-degree countersink, can line up with our tailstock, our live center that we're going to use. So a little dab of cutting fluid, always a good idea, and we'll go ahead and drill this. Okay. That looks good. Now I've got something to fixture the center drill on. So we're just going to go ahead and back out the drill chuck. We don't need that anymore. Slide this guy back and remove the drill chuck. Replace it with a center drill so we could turn between centers. And I'll loosen up our chuck so that we have a good 4.5, 5 inches sticking out. Let's see, grab a tape measure, make sure I've got enough. Yeah, I need 4.5, maybe 5 inches, so we'll probably go at about here. I'll leave about 5 inches sticking outside of the chuck. That'll do. This doesn't have to be precise. Just don't want to have to set it up again afterwards. So we'll go ahead and clamp this guy down. There we go. And I'll engage the center, tighten up the end piece over here. So I've got this guy good and tight right here. And then I'm going to give this a little bit of back pressure, so kind of dial in the quill, push it in until it's flush against that stock, and go ahead and tighten that up. So now I've got a nice rigid setup between centers. Awesome. So now, according to the bolt drawing, what I'm going to aim for next is to machine this down to, I'm going to go with 725 all the way to at 4 inches. So 4.5 minus the 0.5. I'm going to go 4 inches from this end over and line up so I get that turned down to 725. That'll be my next operation. So RPMs should still be in good shape. And I've run into a little bit of a snag with my setup where I can't physically move this over further. So to fix that, I'm going to advance my quill out a little bit further and loosen up the tailstock. So back this off, make sure that I can get it started, and then we'll just push the quill out here. There we go. I'll lock her down. And again, put a little bit of feed on that, a little bit of pressure on it. All right, seeing a little bit of a problem here, but we'll see if we can't push through it. It looks like the tool, the cutter, is actually going to be hitting on this piece. Get a better view of that. So we may have to do some entertaining things here. Let's see what happens. But my general thing is to bring this down to 4 inches. And so a good idea for me would be to mark that at 4 inches somehow. Get a caliper here. And if I get this moved out to 4 inches, there we go. Lock that in. And see if I can't position this in such a way to get that 4-inch mark on there. There's 4 inches from my end of the stock. And that looks pretty good right there. I'm exactly at 4 inches, and my cutter is that distance away from the edge. So I think I'm going to create a little witness mark here for me, and I can get a little bit closer later. So maybe I'll back it off just a little bit to start it. Okay, so now I've got a line at 4 inches that I can reference. So let's get into the cutting operation here. We're just going to turn this down. Probably go in about 50 thousandths at a shot here. And then I'm going to be engaging the slide. So I just want to make sure I got in here and showed you guys the gearbox for my auto feed. I've decided to go with a fairly aggressive rough cut here, about going to 33 thousandths, or I'm sorry, that's 3 thousandths per inch over here. So I've got it set up in this column here, and then it's on the letter D. So it's going to be 3 thousandths per revolution that it's going to be cutting. We'll see how that looks once I get going with the cut. Here we go. Probably going to go in about 50 thousandths, and then we'll engage. Seem to be getting a nice cut here. Again, cutting fluid never hurts. Whew, look at her smoke. And I could see my witness marks at 4 inches. So I'm going to take this first cut, go all the way till it's close to that 4-inch mark. And I'll probably stay proud of that. All right, now I'm just a few inches away, or a fraction of an inch away from that line. I'm going to disengage and then manually feed it over. Again, I'm going to stay away from that 4-inch mark, but that should be good. Now, without adjusting the top slide, I'm just going to run it back and engage some more here. Probably, again, about another 50 thousandths inward, and start making a cut. So I finished my second pass, and now this is truly round, and I'm going to go ahead and grab a caliper and check. According to my drawing, I'm shooting for 725 diameter, and you can always take material off, but you can't add it back in. So right now, this is measuring at 735, and I want to get it to, 835, and I want to get it down to 725. So that means I'm going to have to advance this top slide in about, gosh, do some math here. I want 725, it's at 835, so I'm at 0.110 from the finished target. And so I'm going to go with about 55 thousandths on that top slide. Now, because I haven't touched anything on the top slide, it's about getting close to the end of that second pass. I'm just about ready to disengage the auto feed. Disengage. Brush it up. Looks good. So at the end of this pass, we ended up at 780. And I want to get to 725 as my end goal. All right? So that's going to be 55 thousandths that I want to remove from this yet. And again, I want half of that, so I'm going to go about 25 thousandths on this top slide, and that would result in a 50 thousandths removal of material on the diameter. So this is where my cross slide is sitting, and I said I wanted to go in about 25 thousandths on this. So it looks like it's pretty close to about 81 right now. And so I'll go ahead and fire up the machine and bring this in. There's about 5, 10, 15, 20. There's about 25 thousandths. And we'll go ahead and make that pass. Okay, so I finished that pass. We thought we might be getting close to our 725 mark. And if I look at this, I'm getting 730. So I'm only about 5 thousandths away from that target. So if anything, I want to move that top slide in only about 2.5 thousandths to get my 5 thousandths target. So when I reach the end of the cut, I don't want to adjust where I'm at. I like this top slide right where it is. So if I just move this backwards, okay, and then I just need to move it in about 2.5 thousandths, and then I should hit my target of 725. So let's do that. The top slide again, there's one way I should fire this up. There's 1 thousandths, 2 thousandths, should be good to go, and this should be my final pass. Just taking a nice 2.5 thousandths pass on there. It should get me down to my 725 final diameter. Just reaching the end of that 2.5 inch diameter, just about ready to disengage the auto travel. There it is, and I'll just come in right there. So this should be at about 725, and I actually got a little bit under, so I'm at 722, which is still within tolerance, so I'm very pleased with that. So our next objective here is going to be, did we actually hit our tolerance for this length? Whoa, okay, so looking at this, it was a 1/2 inch for the head of the bolt, 4.5 inch length, so the difference between this point and this point was 4 inches. We kind of eyeballed that with a marker, but now let's go in and get that right where we want it. So how I'm going to do that is actually to slide my tail stock out of the way. And get in there with a caliper and see where this is at for get an accurate reading on that length. So how did we do from here to here? Am I at 4 inches? All right. So it looks like we're proud of that line by design. And so we're at about 50 thousandths away from our 4 inch mark. So I'm just going to go ahead and drive that in and fix it. And I'm going to remember my numbers here. So down here on the cross slide, when I hit my diameter, this was at almost 110. Okay, so it's at 108 thousandths right here, and that's my stop gauge. So I can keep going in and stop once I reach that 108. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of feed my top slide until I hit that mark on occasion. So we'll back it up. 108 is the number to remember. So go ahead and fire this up. We'll drive it forward and just slowly kind of go until I hit that 108 mark. That looks good. Just kind of cleaning up the shoulder until I get my target. There's 100, there's 108, so I hit my mark there. And now I'll measure and see if we're closer to our 4 inch target here. Oh, look at that. Perfect. So we're at 4.05 inches, so that is absolutely perfect. We've got the 4 inch length that we needed, and that should be still measuring at the right diameter of 725 right up on that shoulder. Get in there with this. All right, looks good. Yes. So we've achieved the 4 inch dimension from underneath the head of the bolt to the tip. Now our objective is to get this 625 and this mark here. So it's 625 diameter is going to be shaving down. And again, the difference here, 725 to 625, is a 50 thousandths difference. So I'm going to remember my top slide was at 108. And if I engage that 50 thousandths in from there, that should be really close to the 625 mark that we're shooting for. Okay, so I'm trying to hit this shoulder over here at 20,000 or 200 thousandths, and that should be all that 725 is. It's at 200 thousandths, and then it steps down to 625. So in order to achieve that distance, I'm going to get a caliper in there and get it started away from that point. So I needed 20 thousandths or 200 thousandths, I'm sorry, between there. And so I'm going to actually get a caliper between that shoulder and the edge of the cutting tool and try to create a reference mark. And it's getting a little tight in here, and I can't really show it very well on the camera, but I'm going to get in there. That's 3. All right, so I was able to get that caliper jaws right in there, and I think it's pretty decent right there. I'm going to create a little bit of a mark for me to drive up to. So now I have a visual that is a distance away, and I should be able to verify that that's about at that 0.2 that I was aiming for. And I think I'm a bit proud of that, which is good. It's about 10 thousandths proud of that line. So that'll be a good visual indicator of when to stop turning this down. All right, so now back to turning the rest of it down. So we're just going to keep going, same practice, just going slowly until we hit our 625 mark on here. Taking off about 25 thousandths on this pass. Again, the best philosophy is just kind of work your way up to that number, because it's easy to remove material. It's a lot harder to put it back. Probably the 4th time I said that by now. Doing a check on that last pass, and it's measuring at about 670, which is about 45 thousandths from where I need to be. So again, I'm just going to go in about 25 thousandths on the cross slide and work my way up to that number. So here we go, 20 thousandths, sorry. So 5, 10, 15, there's 20 thousandths, and we'll engage. Getting close to my final number here. I was aiming for 625, and I've got about 628. So quite pleased with those numbers. Just need to shave a little bit more off of there to get down to my 5/8 inch. And so one final pass, I think we'll do this. And away we go. This is what it looks like taking off 2 thousandths from this last pass. Just a tiny little string coming off of there, and it should be at 625. And away we go. Okay, just finished off that last pass, aiming for 625. I got it down to 620, which is just perfect, because when you look up in the machinist handbook for major diameter of external threads, we should be in between these numbers, 6234 down to 6113. So I'm right within the range for the major diameter for a 5/8 11 UNC thread. Very happy with that. And our next operation, next video, we're going to be talking about getting the thread cut.